Hi guys, thank you for being so supportive. I'm sorry I'm out today. My daughter's got a bit of a cold. She's got like a deep raspy cough and a little bit of a fever. Um, Today, thank you Megan for uh, taking this on and leading the team. Today, guys, what we're doing is a mini data analysis. So we're doing the same process we did with our IAs, except we're kind of like condensing it so it's tangible. We can do it just with our X tickets in one session, and it's to help inform us to give a little mini reteach. Think of like a 5 to 10 minute problem that helps address those misconceptions that you identify that are in the exit tickets. And our goal is to make this kind of a regular practice of in our teaching habit, not necessarily making a protocol every time, but it becomes so familiar that it becomes regular for us. Um, this aligns with our goal, and I'm going to go back up to that slide. It aligns with our goal today of adapting our instruction to drive students to use multiple representations and take time to explain and justify the reasoning. We want to create the conditions for students to talk. We want them to speak to what they know. We want them to speak to creating connections of like, oh, I'd never noticed it that way, or hey, this is how I think of it. We really want to promote that in our classrooms for this cycle too. So that's our goal. All right, so I'm going to go through the steps of what you'll be doing today. So if you look at our first step, you have brought 3 high, 3 medium, 3 low exit tickets from a recent lesson. Um, and then you have your exemplar response that just is part of your natural lesson planning that you guys do. You would have the already that pre-prepared. Next is what we're going to do is we're going to identify the standard that your lesson is doing, and then we're going to see what is that rigor. We're also going to look at your student work and see what are the trends, what are the things that you first noticed, things they do well, areas to grow, and then think about how does our instruction led to those results. And then lastly, we'll plan. We'll plan a 5 to 10 minute, really small. It's gonna be one problem that we're gonna re-engage our students as a do now in those first few minutes of class. So our first step, when you click on this, you click this link right here. It's also in the invite. There, it'll make you make a copy. So make a copy of this, label it with your name, and then you can share it with me and Megan. Um, the first step to this is identifying your standard. And I want to show you how to do that. So to find your standard, the easiest way is to go into Great Minds. You can access this through Clever, or if you have it saved already on your desktop. Let me use fourth grade, for example. If I'm in module 3 for fourth grade, I'd click my module and then just scroll down and look for your lesson. So let's say I just taught lesson 9. If I go down, I see lesson 9 is right here. And in the topic, it tells you the standards that it has. Now, it might be more than one standard. It might just be 2 or 1 standard. Some of it might be 3 or 4. Simply click on both what standards are there and identify what sounds like what I taught, right? In that lesson, this one is multiplying a whole number up to 4 digits by 1 digit whole number, okay, for NBTB5. All right, that might be it. I'll go back to lesson 9, or it might be 4882, where I had to use word problems to do the same operation. Okay, well, on lesson 9, it was, when I look at it, it looks like I was using the standard algorithm, so it's probably more for NBTB5. All right, perfect. I'm going to put that in the standard is for NBT5, and I'll put that straight in there. The next steps, to be simplest, we're going to take back from ANET. So now that I know it's for NBTB5, I'm going to go to my ANET, myachievementnetwork.org. And in here, I'm going to go to standards. So I'll click standards on the top. And I'll need to change this to math and my grade level. I'll update it. And then I'm looking for NBTB5. So right here is for NBTB5, and I'm going to click it. The nice part of this is it gives you a rundown of that standard real quick, so you could spend less time trying to break down the standard. You could just read it real quick. Here are the parts of the standard. Or I'm sorry, first I can get the description. So I would highlight and copy and paste the description into that first yellow part. The parts of the standard are these bullet points. And when you copy and paste, do it without formatting, otherwise it comes out really weird. So I'll copy and paste parts of the standard. Obviously, I'll read them, but then I'll put them in this section right here that we have for the standard tab. The next step is to identify. It's important to notice, is it a conceptual standard, procedural, or application? My ANET kind of takes the guesswork out of it. It's under aspects of rigor, which is right here. So for this, it's conceptual and procedural, depending on the situation. So I'd go back and say, okay, for aspects of rigor, I would type in here, this one is conceptual and procedural. Lastly, I would use my ANET to look at the assessment items. So if you simply scroll down, it gives you some assessment items below, so you can look at those. Another strong practice is to go into your ENDA module and say, which ones does this align to my ENDA module? It's more for just kind of your thinking, so you have in the back of your mind, how is this connecting to how I'm going to assess them later? So it can be either from ANET, or you could also look at your ENDA mod, which you could find in here. You could go to the ENDA mod or mid mod and say, okay, how does this connect to the assessment they're going to take? And for that one, you just need to check it off. I'm not asking you to write anything. It's just a step in the process that's really helpful. Once you finish that, it should look like something similar to this. This one I use the second grade example, but it has broken down for you as an exemplar. Copy and paste from Great Minds, copy and paste from ANET, copy and paste from ANET, and just internalize and read them all. Following that, and that should take about 10 minutes. The next step for you is to analyze your exit tickets, right? You have 9 exit tickets, 3 high, 3 medium, 3 low. Simply record the trends you see. Across the board, what are some trends you're seeing? Not every kid's going to be the same. Not every kid's going to fit in the trend. But overall, what are the trends that you're seeing? Trends you can build from, things they show understanding on, right? Don't just focus on only your low students. Don't focus only on your high students. Broadly, altogether, what are things they are showing? A lot of them are showing they understand. And the opportunities for growth. What's a trend you're seeing? Lastly, this is the most important thing. We want to continue to push yourself. It's uncomfortable. It's not the funnest step. But think about, when I taught this lesson, what decisions did I make? What did I do? How did I teach it to lead to the results that I got, right? How does the data make you think about your instructional or curricular decisions, right? This would be an example of something where I took that second grade example before for the exemplar. Here are the strengths that I found I could build from. Students showed they attempted a tape diagram that was positive, and they showed a good addition with single-digit numbers. Opportunities for growth. They struggle identifying the part-whole relationship. They struggle in decomposing 2-digit numbers to add them all up. And then strong. This was an exemplar example from our last round. It says, it has made me aware of how inaccurate using a choral response can be for gauging student understanding. I brushed over fluency practice because it seemed like scholars were being bored by the topic because it was too easy. I also think at times I might be scaffolding too much in the wrong places. I think they would have benefited from getting to spend more time with manipulatives in their hands and having those moments of productive struggle. It doesn't have to be that long, but look in the mirror and which is the hardest part, and say, okay, based on what I did, what do I think led to these results? And think about positive what led to the results and where are areas of growth for myself to make a result, to improve these results. So about 7 to 10 minutes for this section probably as well. Now we get to the planning portion. Now you've looked at your stuff. I'm now going to identify my plan based on the aspect of rigor. So back to my 4th grade example, I knew that the standard that I had looked at from ANET and Great Minds for MBT B5 was conceptual and procedural. So I'm going to look at conceptual, procedural. I'll identify and think to myself, well, for 4th grade, maybe they really struggled with just doing the steps, which would have been a procedural skill. So I'm going to look at which of these 4 options for instructional strategies am I going to use in my small reteach, the 5 to 10 minute listen, 5 to 10 minute problem that we're going to re-engage with. So I can look through it, and all I got to do is highlight it, okay? For the 2nd grade exemplar that I had used when I pulled this out, it was an application. So that's all you got to do is highlight. So I highlighted it. And I chose one of them. That's the one, if I was in 2nd grade, that's the one I would try to engage with and use that strategy and re-engaging my students for that 5 to 10 minutes. I created some examples. By no means are these the best examples, but there's some examples to get you thinking. I've used in my own class. You're using one problem, okay? 5 to 10 minutes, it's going to be one problem. Don't go over the board. You still have to teach your normal lesson. But 5 to 10 minutes, I'm giving one lesson. Now, thinking about that, think of how much work you're going to make your students do. A conceptual example is I am going to show this whole slide to them. I'm not going to make them work out the problem necessarily. I'll read the problem. I want them to identify and work it out in their brain, but I'm going to have an example already pre-done. So in this example, Alan's required to buy 2 pairs of uniform pants and 2 baseball caps for a baseball team. They total $68. A pair of pants costs $12 more than a baseball cap. How much does a baseball cap cost? So in this example, I created an expression. I created a tape diagram. I created a statement that a student said. Alan says that his baseball caps cost $44 because he had spent his total spent is $68. He needed to buy 2 pairs of pants that are $12. After taking that away from the total, he has $44 left, which is how much a baseball cap costs. So when I say solve the problem on their own, I read it, let them look at it for a while, and say, okay, try to engage with it yourself. Take a moment to try to solve it. Then, do you agree or disagree with Alan's reasoning? This is a time I would say, talk with your partners, talk with your group, discuss it. And then share with your group what you know about the problem. Another way to do it, I know we did on Zoom, is you can have them write down their thoughts before they come to share with their group. That way you hold them just like that responsibility to everybody, that everyone participates. It's a good idea. But this is one way engaging with them. And then lastly, we'd come together and talk about it and say, did this person solve it the right way? What do you notice? What do you wonder? What do you see they did? What questions do you have? And then you guys can come to some conclusions, which is the conceptual piece, right? Another one would be procedural example. In this procedural example, I gave you an example of connecting procedures to procedural understanding. So I gave 4 different models of what 637 times 12, how it might be represented. And I wanted students to say, which examples solve it? All of these solve it. But first, I want them to determine and recognize which ones are correct ways of getting to the answer, because it might lead to connecting that procedural to conceptual understanding of like, oh, it's just repeated addition, right? I'm taking groups of each amount of each place value. And then most of it solved. For them to finish solving each of these, with the exception of the repeated addition one, are fairly simple. I'm adding what the values that are already given that students can go ahead and realize that all of them give you the same product. So that'd be another thing to verify their answer. And then an application example here, I created 2 options for this one. This is a 3rd grade example based on a word problem. I wouldn't tell them this, but both answers are correct. I want them to make connections between one is showing the distributive strategy and one's just using a tape diagram and comparing the 2. And so I would say, like, what do you notice is the same and different? I see that both of them came to the same answer, right? I'm looking for someone to say that. I'm looking for people to say, I could make the same multiplication expression for both individuals for how many minutes they spent reading. The work's already done. We want to promote students being able to talk about what they do. Not performing always, but talk about and discuss what do they notice, what do they see, to build some discourse between students in the mathematics. All right. So with that, it'll be work time. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Megan in solving those steps. I would say come back at 3:40, depending on time. I know Megan will lead you there. And I would give them, I would take about 10 minutes being prepared to teach your partner your one problem. Okay. So you'll finish your problem. The goal is to finish and have your plan already set for the next time you teach, and then share it with a grade level that is not close to yours. So if you're in 7th grade, go talk to Louise. Go talk to Louise. If go to a different grade level who doesn't even know your mathematics, because that will give you the most authentic look and questions that you'll get in the classroom, right? You want to get questions where like maybe Deanna will be like, I don't know how to do that 8th grade math. She's the perfect person to talk to because she will get it. You just have to teach it to her, right? And you'll realize, oh, there's questions I could ask to promote the whatever I'm trying to drive to my students that I saw as the misunderstanding. All right. And then lastly, before I jump off, next week, White Elephant Exchange. If you don't want to partake in this, no problem. You don't need to. I'm going to bring some extra gifts anyways, but rule is for White Elephant, in my opinion, is you can't spend more than $2. So if you get something from the dollar store and it has tax, that's all you get, right? But really ideally, pick something random from your classroom that you don't want anymore that you normally would throw away, or something random from the house, something you find that is funny or awesome, or just something to give away. And I'll have extra items in case not, but we have a short time together next week. So next Wednesday, we'll celebrate with a little White Elephant gift exchange before we go on break, and have some celebrations as well. So other than that, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Feel free to call, text me. I'm here. I'm just with my daughter. If you have any questions or need any support. Thanks, guys. You guys have a great day, okay?